Greetings. Happy Sabbath, good Sabbath. Greetings to all in the space. I just want to let everyone know that there is um, a little bit of a delay, probably about 20 to 30 seconds. So, Ia Precious and I will try to read your chats or as we go along. So, we're going to get started right away. And I first want to make sure I'm in this space. Um, as we're moving into our Sabbath, I want to make sure we open the space in reverence to the Most High Yah. Give thanks to Chief Yuya, who is the author of this tome. Give thanks to everyone in the space. And I also want to give thanks to my virtual partner in crime, Ia Precious. And she is going to give us a little bit of a summary on what we'll be going over this evening.
Greetings, shalom. So, what we are going to do is read to you from the Anu Way, Volume 1, Foundations. We're going to continue with where our brothers left off last strong and open in Section 2, the Anu Way, Linguistics. So, I'll begin there. Linguistically, Anu has many variations and placements throughout time and nations. Here are a few references. In Hebrew, Anu means us or we. In Igbo, Anu means to marry, to hear, to wage or meet, meat. Anu, an Akkadian archetype of the sky. Anu is the name of a Sumerian god. It means the heavenly ones. Anu is a name that means mercy in Yoruba. It's the short form of the name Anuo Luapo, meaning the mercy of Olodumare is great. There are many variations of the term Anu. Here are a few that you should make a note of. On, Anu, Ani, Oni. Waters. The name Noah also has connections with the word Nu or Anu. In ancient Sanskrit, we are told of the story of Manu. Manu was a person like Noah who survived a flood and was considered an ancient champion based on his flood experience. Manu built an ark that housed 8 people like Noah. The term Manu eventually was transliterated as man. In Kemetic saga, he was the prototype known as Nu. Nu and his feminine counterpart, Nut, were water primordial deities. I'll stop there.
They were the primordial waters, the progenitors of people, or even the original pools of gestation, are represented with the Nu moniker. Noah had 8 souls in the ark and was instructed to build 4 men and their 4 mated consorts. The Ogdoad in ancient Kemetic lore consisted of 8 manifested archetypes, of 4 male archetypes and their 4 mated female counterparts. In due time, we will explore the relationship between the Anu and water, investigate the term Manu for yourself. You will discover numerous times where it is utilized throughout the world to signify royalty, priesthood, humanity, and the aquatic epithets. So before we move on, we just want to share a little bit about what those two sections within the Anu part of the Anu way mean to us and how we interpreted that. And so I'll, Ia Precious, if you want to start with linguistics, if there was something you want to share, and then I'll come in after.
Sure. So I found how universal the phrase Anu is, the word Anu, and we'll go deeper into its connection to water and its origins when we read more about Manu. But I think that there's a lot of value in exploring the different iterations that we listed as we look at On, Anu, Ani, and Oni, and really for each and every person to dig into what that means and how it connects to them personally.
Yeah, and another thing that I think is really interesting here in our new, members are about to start courses and classes. And that's one thing that we are going to be looking at linguistics and getting more deeper into the Anu, the Anunnaki. A lot of us have been learning Hebrew and moving in that space. And so I thought that in reading this, kind of like going back to that was really helpful and really it shows that everything is perfect for the times. So that's what I took away from linguistics. And then for water, um, I thought about like, we just had like a few months since the summer, but I always think about like when we talk about water, I think about the beach.
Mhm.
And when we're learning about like the primordial waters and it being gestational, I think that could be a reason why, when we find ourselves near the ocean or large bodies of water, there's that calming and that, feeling at peace because it's kind of going back to what we were. So the part about water, and we can go much deeper into it, but I just want to share like that small piece. And I think that's what resonated with me really on the part about water.
Yeah, yeah. And when you said, that gestational piece, it's like even just going back to the beginning, right, of either our origin as man or our origins into coming into this physical being, right, and going
Mm,
back into that womb space and that dark space. So yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anytime I hear the word primordial, I'm like creation. And so, creation is like Elohim and reflection of, what we are. So,
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so we'll transition into Zion. The term Zion or On in Hebraic linguistics indicates the holy place. On is the name of an actual city in classical Kemet. Greeks assigned themselves with the task of renaming the city to Heliopolis. Helios translates to sun, and Opolis translates to city. This is not a reference to sun worship, but an identification with the symbol of the sun as the Most High Star. You may be acquainted with the term Zion or Sion. Zai translates to arid place, and On, holy place or city. The holy city in the hot place or holy city in the desert is the designation of Zion. Zion embraces the inner core of righteousness that exists within any great nation or city. In Older Kemet and in the Holy Bible, we see the reference on. On was a term that always means man. On or Anu is an indication of the aboriginal origins of man. Anu represents the initial righteous truth core of a nation. I'll stop there.
okay. Um, in Hebrew scripture, we visit Zion and Jerusalem, or the city of David, being made synonymous with one another. What this essentially represented was Zion as the spiritual center and Jerusalem as the outstretching of that heart. It is analogous to the bond that Zion has with Israel. Zion, or Mount Zion, symbolizes the best of what the Most High premeditated into the hearts of people. There is even a crusade by those who call themselves Zion to reclaim what they consider to be holy, the holy lifestyle as given to the novel children of Israel. The title Jerusalem, or more properly stated, Yerushalayim or Jerusalem, means the city of peace or the light of peace. This word, sometimes spelled Yerushalem, is synonymous with Zion. We realize that Anu, on, idea attaches with an awareness of returning to an extraordinary idea, as Zion characterizes a return to the importance of the soul. There is much more that we will say in due time about this, but for now, we must make it well defined to you that the homecoming to a holy land is a return to a rectified state with the creator of all. I provide you with this philological background so that when you see the inscribing of Anu in innumerable forms, you will be able to make a consistent connection to what is being represented in term and impression. So, with this section on Zion, what really stood out to me and what resonated with me was the part about the city of David.
Mm.
Um, and in scripture, in Kings, I believe, and apologies, I'm not able to pull the exact scripture, the exact verse, chapter and verse, but it talks about, Jerusalem being the place where the descendants of David will be, and that they're keeping the lamp for God. So when we talk about returning to a holy land, I think that speaks volumes, especially for Anu, and we can even take it back to linguistics, that being, a connection just from the beginning.
Mhm. So I think in this section we actually kind of connected in the same chapter, but on different planes. Um, when it says there is even a crusade by those who call themselves Zionists to reclaim what they consider to be the holy lifestyle as given to the novel Children of Israel. I thought of Anu lifestyle, right? I thought of culture. And even, if you're watching this and you're not a part of Anu, consider what your culture is, how you define culture, and how you allow culture to establish your boundaries, or as Chief has said, your contours, right? Um, because Anu culture is biblical study. It is obedience to law and statutes. And to just kind of elucidate what law speaks to, we were taught that law is the love of Allah's wisdom. So, really, law brings us back to obedience and study and community and a commitment therein. So, being able to see the connection between the culture that we live and being a Zionist is almost, it's really thought provoking, and it really helps us appreciate, that we too go back to antiquity. So that's what I took from Zion.
Yeah. And I'm just looking in the chat, and Chief Yuya, give thanks for helping out with the Bible, with the scripture. It's 1 Kings 15:4. Nevertheless, for David's sake did the Lord his God give him a lamp in Jerusalem to set up his son after. Um, so give thanks. So we're going to move on forward to the model. And for those of you who are still coming into the chat, I just want to just kind of quickly remind, like, there is a little bit of a delay. So we are keeping an eye on the chat. So we're going to answer your questions like as they come in. And so I'm not sure if we're going to be like ahead of your answer before. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. So we're going to move forward to the salvation model. And I think we can probably, continue our pattern, right? Yeah. So,
Sure, sure, sure,
okay.
sure. Let's flow. All right, so the salvation model. Anu hold themselves to a superior specification, irrespective of what exists around them. Consider the experience of a flood. When there is a deluge all around you, the saving grace is that you do not allow the torrent inside. And I want you to take note of torrent because we're going to go back to that. If the liquid that is all around the ship gets inside, the vessel will descend. This is a seamless example of what it means to be Anu. As Anu, we may find ourselves encircled and even suspended above a downpour of cultural insanity. But as long as we do not absorb the colony crazy, you will stay afloat and earn valiant rank through your own right. These Anu beings, who later become flood champions, had a special association with the insight of the heavenly brain, coupled with the inborn faith nature to listen and submit. These studied examples are no different from the surge caused by Olokun in Yoruba lore. It was the energy of purity, Obatala, who dropped his chain to save Eniyan, mankind, from drowning. It is noted that only some were able to reach the chain and save themselves. We may ask ourselves, why did not Obatala drop the chain lower? Why did not he come down the chain himself and heave people up to Orun? What about those who not only could not reach the chain, but also could not even see it? Our role is not to save the masses of mankind. Our role is to live above the deluge of wayward emotions and aggressive ignorance that rule humanity. Envision a flood as a moving current. It's it's a frequency. The secular frequency is the wave note of death. This is why Obatala would not come to earth to hoist us up. Obatala, Orumala, and Oduduwa must preserve the frequencies of eternal life.
So let's take a pause right there,
Mhm.
and we can share about those few paragraphs.
So I will kind of go back to the idea of the deluge and allowing the torrent inside. So when you think of a deluge, it's a swift stream, right? Or current. And so, right, that was a swoosh. And so with that, what happens? Um, you can't respond to a deluge in that moment. There's preparation. You have to be in a place and in a space where when it happens and if it happens, everything you had done leading up to that point is going to avail you the right to be a flood champion. Because if not, then if you're not the flood champion, then I won't say what you are. But I think the example, as we read more about where the chain is positioned and why it's positioned in that fashion, and the example of Obatala makes it clear that there's work that we have to do to ready ourselves. Um, and of course, the reality is that we are going to live um, encircled, sometimes uh, suspended above. Um, but no matter where we are, the expectation remains the same that we're walking in an obedience and preparedness for the flood.
Hmm.
That, I'll stop there. We can
Yeah.
go on and on.
Yeah. And I just wanted to add, you when you said, like, preparedness, it just reminded me, and some of the things that we talk about in Anu and on our ciphers is being prepared, and part of that is, like, we have to bug out, and so you
Mhm.
can't, like, in the moment be ready for that deluge. You have to prepare. So we think about bugging out and bug out bags and things like that. It's all related. That's like your real world example of preparing for the deluge, right? So I just wanted to add that in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm going to move forward with a few excerpts from the final entries from this part of the reading, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what it meant to us. We are pointing to the descended chain of salvation. The chain also represents the development of our DNA sequence. Our deliverance is not just entwined in our aptitude for cyclical information intake and regurgitation, but in alteration down to the genetic level. The Anu pulsation commands renovation within. Some may be open and sympathetic to the information, meaning they see the chain, but they are unwilling to grab onto it and climb it. There is a great effort required in leaving worldly attachments beneath you. If you were to grab the strand of redemption and be hoisted up, you would not be doing your own work of ascension. A heavy heart will assail you down from the rapturous tour of evolution. A burdened heart indicates that your humanity has filled the spaces of your spirit and has thrust out your capacity reserved for the weightlessness of your spiritual transcendence. There is always a dualistic balance in the world sphere. Dualism is one of the laws that govern this dimension. If you now have a clear conception of the role, of, then by calculation you can process that there is a dualistically opposed dynamism of those who are thoroughly invested in worldly spirit. Some are driving people toward the rescue arc or chain of salvation, and others are driving them deeper into the seas of spiritual barrenness, further away from the deific. We all have a role to play in the large stratagem of creation. So I'm going to stop right there and then just share the part that was like really powerful and profound for me. And that's the part about this being a great effort required in leaving worldly attachments beneath us. And immediately, you think about, and it's that reference to a Batalist chain. And so immediately I think about all of the sacrifices that have to be made, like the personal sacrifices, right? In order to make sure that I'm not just like caught up or hoisted up, but I'm actually doing the work and putting in the work to be obedient and follow the will of Yah and follow the law so that, you know, I can make sure that I'm clean inside and that my heart is clean, and all of that has to happen from the heart. And it's not easy work either. And I found that out, pretty quickly. So, and I think it could be a shared experience among members in Anu. It's not just oh, this is cool and this is what I'm going to do. It's work you have to put in. Mm-hmm. So, and I think when we come out on the other side, shiny and new, like the brand new bird, we're all better for it. Before I continue, Your Precious, do you want to add something?
Sure. You read about duality, and what came to mind for me was the reference to the inward renovation, right? And the juxtaposition between the inward renovation and then later touching in on the heavy heart. And so when I think of renovation projects, the first thing you have to do is declutter. You have to clear out before you even break down the wall, before you even can envision a space, you have to empty it out. And oftentimes when you're done with the renovation project, your space is so much cleaner and more, more airy, more spacious, if you will. So it's almost like we have to go through the lightening of the heart, right? We have to have that, light, heart, light hearted than a feather, heart lighter than a feather. Um, and so with that, that speaks to that hard work that you touched on that we all discover really quickly. And I knew that like this is not, just something you read, you live it, right? You live it and you have to practice what you're living. And so yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking in the chat and I see Sister Kashia is flushing out in modelship. Exactly. We have to flush out, and then that doing, showing on the outside is that modelship, in action, right? So I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, a few paragraphs down, and start where we talk about bloodline, right? So the Anu experience is for those who are aligning with the mission of a bona fide awakening. When we say Anu is a bloodline, we are speaking of an imperial celestial bloodline that extends beyond margins and geography that we are mending. Inside of the blood, there is life. There is an ancestral history and, of course, authority. Imagine every family on earth developing a messiah or champion of their own over the course of thousands of years. There would be a trickling deposit of intellect and gifts into the gene pool that would one day be transported into one individual. Each family would logically have its own liberator, and these various champions, messiahs, would have a similarity in that they are built correspondingly in order to perform the task that all heavenly bodies have been known to undertake. These people would be more divine than human. And so that part about the bloodline was really really interesting. I think once I shared a story and experience on the Sabbat call regarding relatives of mine, and the saying was mentioned, blood calls blood, and that's exactly how I look at Anu and like why I'm even here, right? It was blood calling me, and in that blood is life. And so it really speaks to finding who you're supposed to be with, finding your family, which is that body that you share culture with. And so that's really what was powerful and profound for me, just in that part alone.
Mhm. And so that blood calling blood, right? It's one of the connections that I made to the Manu, and Manu being transliterated to not just man, but when you dig into some of those other iterations, it actually in some cultures transliterates to original man.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to kind of ask yourself, if this is calling to you, then what does that mean about who you are
Right.
and what that flows through your body and its connection to this legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of helps to strengthen, definitely, I would say, on the hard days, which, you know, there's lots in this text that we'll dig into, that calls for that reformation and that renovation. And just to kind of go back to the chat before we transition, Chief Yuya said, folks often try to find justification to reappropriate their clutter. So after you've renovated, after you've gotten rid of clutter, it's like maybe perhaps you haven't gotten rid of it, but you just find a new place to put it, or
Mm-hmm.
a place to put it in your new space, right? You're going to rearrange that clutter,
Right.
right? And so that's not what this is. And quite honestly, from what I've experienced living our new culture, that's where, your sisters and brothers support you and just really helping you recognize when you're trying to just fit your dysfunction into places where it actually no longer belongs. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And it really calls you to be responsible, right, with your talents and your gifts, and not just bring your baggage,
Exactly.
and not practicing what they call them, phthalates. Maybe I had that wrong.
Hmm. Hmm. Practice. We're gonna see. I think so.
Bellhops.
Say right now. Okay. So I'm going to pick up where you left off, sister. Some are struck in their history and the credit that they consider to be their personalities. Either way, as I knew, we grasp at the notion of striving beyond the glory that can only be held in the earth. Once individuals come into this environment with boastful declarations of what they have created or achieved, they are announcing their premier obstacle. Some are legends in their own mind. They are walking paradoxes. These folks come into this experience with the mindset that they are coming inward to create Anu or to bring their remarkable talents and gifts to this initiative. So They are not coming as students, but in their own artful imagining have conjured the notion that they have been called to be teachers in this space. This is a grievous error. As you hear me speak in the 14 keys, that community rewards and judges from within. We verify talents and gifts of our members. Previous certifications, accomplishments, and so forth have to be decertified by our own community standards. This means everyone comes at an equal standing. There is no textbook description for an ascended person. Those who have been fooled believe that this is so. They seek to emulate it. With all of this said, everyone who is called will not make it through the door. Some have hearts that are heavier than the Ma'atic feather. This means their human drama outweighs their spiritual levity.
Yeah. Like immediately, I think of like, just how we spoke of before, like we all come in, with this baggage that we have to get rid of, and we figure out what those sacrifices are. And also because we're coming in from that secular and world space, there's also coming in with, well, I've achieved this in the Western world. I am a, I don't know, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, or even in my case, like, oh, I'm a director, or I'm a CFO, CEO, I'm in the C-suite period, whatever it is. And then it's like,
That-
let me come into this space and like tell you guys what I know because I do this in the Western world. But we're not about the West. So,
Right, right. In this section, when it speaks about, we grasp the notion of striving beyond the glory that can only be held in the earth. It's like I'm thinking of a celestial evolution, right? So we're beyond, what the earthly trappings are and really climbing that chain. And climbing that chain, the first thing you're going to do, particularly because the chain wasn't dropped, very low for I'm pretty short. So I'm going to have to actually jump. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove my feet from the earth, right? So nothing can come with me, literally or metaphorically speaking. um the other piece that I enjoyed about this was the verification, right? So because there is a community standard there, it's not just, in the healthcare arena, when a physician shows up, you have to do primary source verification. We've got to confirm that the education you say you have and the specialty you claim to preside in is accurate. And
mhm.
there are national bodies that do that verification based on a standard of what's acceptable from a hospital system or from a teaching school. And what I like about what this is saying is that everything is verified, every gift, every talent, and it's measured against this standard, and not the world standard, so as to ensure that those that perhaps may be too heavy, right, too burdened, um, that we're clear about what the ask is, and you're clear about what the commitment is, right, to lighten your load, if you will. So yeah, this is some good stuff.
So we're gonna close out with the final words in this section of the Anu Way, and what we've just concluded was the continuation of what our brothers did last Shishi, and this last part is actually the ending of an excerpt from a letter from Chief Yuya to Anu members. We are only interested in the special ones. You have heard me say many times that this is not for everyone. The Anu teachings that have been seeded into my head are not for everyone, nor is the way those teachings are inseminated into the mental planes of true Anu. There are fewer gods than humans. We are not concerned with the ascension of the entire human populace. That is going to happen eventually, whether we work our hardest or least at this moment. Our job is to model heavenly royalty. In doing so, we sustain that model on the planet. We want nothing that is common, but we aspire to maintain a spirit that is set apart, prestigious, and righteous. Anything else is not Anu. Chief Yuya Assaan-ANU, Chief Jegna. So I want to just follow that up with, um, I think Anu, we are, I think in we have begun taking applications, and I think the deadline is March. And so I would say, like, this is why that last part was really important, and it's definitely a message to be heard. And so that's why, yeah, Precious and I talked and be like, yeah, we're gonna read that out to the end. So, as people who are Anu and not Anu watching this video, and specifically those who are not and are, looking at what we do here, it's really important to take heed to that last part. And so, and even in that, I'll remind everyone that the Anu way is also free. It's free, and you can go to www.anulifeglobal.org, and you can find the book there. I'm just going to read the chat a little bit. Chief Yuya
Yeah,
says we begin taking in March, so apologies. So applications will open in March, and so I just want we are only interested in the special. Your Precious, did you have anything to add?
sure. I was just gonna go back a little bit in the chat. So Chief Yuya said, folks often try to find justification and oh, I read that one. Okay, this is the part that people with small spirits and huge egos refuse to acquiesce to. So that had to do with what they need to let go of in order to kind of hold on to that chain. And I think that's it. Oh, and Emma Sequoia said, "That's right, say it for those in the back." And I think she was referring to who this is for, right? And who we want, which are who is it? The special people. So we just repeat it one more time. So give thanks, and we hope to see you next Yom Shishi. Yes.
Yes. Give thanks, everyone. Thank you for dropping by, and we'll see you in the forward. Peace.